Hi, in this video we will be inserting a table into an article. We will insert the table, we will center the table on the page, we will resize the columns of the table, we will look at alignment of text within the cells, we'll look at some cell properties, some row properties, some column properties, then look at how we can change the background color of a table. Then we'll also look at how to insert a table from an Excel spreadsheet if we want to copy and paste information into an article. And lastly, we will look at giving the table a caption. Let's start. I'm using this article as an example, and I will edit that and choose to insert a table inside of it. I will put a table inside in where the cursor is blinking at the moment. Right, to put a table into an article is a very simple action by clicking on the table tool. Simply click on it. It opens up a table properties window with two tabs. I wouldn't bother with the advanced tab. Everything that you need to do, you really need to do on the table properties tab. So first thing you need to do is you need to choose how many rows you want. Let's say we'll have 6 rows. We'll have 4 columns. The width of the table we'll leave at 500. We can always change that later. You have to choose whether the border size of your table. If you choose 0, it means that there's going to be no borders, so we'll start off by choosing a 0. And then you need to look at cell spacing. Cell spacing is about how far apart the cells are going to be from each other. We'll look at that briefly. I'll leave it 1 at the moment. And then cell padding decides how much space will you have between the borders of the cell and the text within the cell. And then, of course, you can give it a caption. We'll look at that a little bit later as well. So all we now need to do is click on OK. And you will notice that it is now put a table into our article. And you will see that the borders are quite faint. These borders will only show in the text editor. Once you save the article, it will not show at all. Any coloring, as you could see inside the border, like there you have a light coloring, that will show. For illustration, I'm just going to press enter here so that I can create a little space between the table and the text. Now that is how you insert a table into the article. The next point that we want to discuss is how to center a table on a page. Now normally tables on a page looks much better when it is centered on the page. It looks a bit awkward sitting there. Now the only way you can do this properly is to go into the source, the HTML source code for this thing, so for this article. So if you click on that button and you find where the table tag is, that defines the table, and everything else that follows on down here has to do with the table. That's where the table definition ends. When you found the table tag, you go to the div tag just before that table tag, and you type in a space, a line equals, and then your speech marks, and you specify center, spelled in the American spelling, really. If you type in center with a TRE, it won't work. And that's basically it. If you click on the source tool button again, you will find that it is now centered. So something very simple to remember if you want to center your table on the page. Okay, so just to come back to the illustration of the borders, how to change that. If you click with the right hand mouse button anywhere on the table, like there, you will get this pop-up menu, and you choose Table Properties, which will then pop up with the table properties of the table that you're currently working with. As you can see, it is movable. You can move it out of the way if you want. Doesn't really matter. If I now type in a border size of 1 and I enter, you will see that your borders are now showing up. And it looks like you've got a double line around each one of those cells. Just going to illustrate something further. If I click on Table Properties again and I change the cell spacing, let us say to 7, something quite drastic, and I press OK now, you will see what has happened. It expands the cells and it pushes them further apart from each other. So it would mean that between that cell, that white space there would be 7 pixels. And that is what it all means. 7 is a bit drastic, but yes, it depends what effect you want to have. If I go back there and I'm just going to change it back to, let's say, 3. Cell padding really means the amount of space between the text within the cell and the borders of that cell. If you have 0 there, it means that your text will start right on the line. 1 will take it 1 pixel away, 5 will take it 5 pixels away from the edge of the cell. Okay, so I'm going to change the cell spacing to 3. At the same time, to illustrate, border size can be, of course, quite drastic. Let's make this one 10 and press OK. And you can see the thick border that it is put around the thing, and you can see how the cells are a little bit spaced away from each other. Now, the next topic that I want to handle is, if you look at this, is to how can you resize the columns of a table. Well, that is very easy as well. All you do is, as you can see, as I move the cursor over the line, you will see that it changes to a double line with 2 arrows pointing left and right. If I click and I hold and I drag it, I will change the size of the cells. Now you will notice that it does not change the outside dimensions of the table itself. If you want to do that, of course, you go to the edge and you drag that. Now you can see now it has changed the whole cell as well, or the whole table. You will notice that you are not able to do this on the left hand side of the table, only on the right hand side of the table. Okay, so you can change these as you like. It doesn't matter. There are more you can do. If you click on the right hand mouse button again, you go into Table Properties, you will find that there is a way that you could even change the height as well. You must experiment with that. I'm not going to do anything in that sense. Now, I was going to talk about aligning text in the cells, but I'll do that. What I will do is I will insert a table from an Excel spreadsheet first, just to show you how that is done. And then that would be populated with text already, and then we can do all the rest of this after that. So what I'm going to do at the moment is I'm simply going to delete this table. You can click right and mouse button. You find in the drop menu you get your table properties, which is what you don't need. If you click right hand mouse button, you can simply see above it there is delete a table. So if I click on that, it simply deletes the table. Right, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy information from a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. So if you select your columns that you want to copy, this table into your article, all you do is you select your columns. You can, of course, in Excel press Control C. That will put the information in your clipboard. That is indicated by those the lines on the outside. Minimize that. If I want to insert my table there, all I have to really do is press Control and V. And you will notice that it has inserted the table there. The same thing will apply. I will go into my source code. I will find the table. I will change that diff statement to align equals center. And if I go back, it would have centered my table into in the document or in the page. Pressing enter just to create a bit of a space there. I can also just leave it like that. You've got space at the bottom, you've got space at the top. Now you will notice that it has copied all the text and everything as you've seen it inside the Excel spreadsheet into this thing here. You have the same possibility to change the sizes of this table. As you can see, it is the same as the table that we created through the table tool. The next thing that we can actually have a look at on our list of that we made is to how do we align the text within the cells of a table. Well, that's a simple thing as well. All you have to do is you have to select the whole table. You click in the first column in front of the first word. You drag diagonally across the thing until all the text is highlighted, and you simply click on your text alignment tools that you have, and you will see I chose centered. You can choose right and aligned as well, but for the sake I'm going to choose centered, and it is nicely centered. Now you can of course do other formatting as well. You can select the header of each column and you can make it bold. You can of course change the fonts and everything like you would do normally with any other font there, with any other text. For the sake of this illustration, I'm going to choose the format, which will be format div. I will make the font banana and I will make that 16 so it fits with the rest of the text. Right, so the next topic to discuss would be cell properties. And then we're going to talk briefly about the row properties and the column properties of this table. Now, the background color of the table is dealt with within the cell properties. So I will talk about that when we talk about the cell properties. Okay, so let's go on. Now, if you want to work with a cell, each little block is referred to as a cell. You can work with them individually. You can work with them in a row. You can't work with them in a column because you can't select it in that way. But I'm going to highlight it to start with, highlight all the cells, click with my right hand mouse button on it, go into the cell properties line, and you will notice that you can insert cells, you can before and after your cursor, you can delete cells, you can merge cells. But the first thing I'm going to talk about is clicking on the cell properties. Unfortunately, in this instance, you have this box that appears, which is not necessary. So I would simply close that one and look at the box in the background. This has to do with the cell properties. In the cell properties, you can, of course, change the sizes. You can change the cell type. You can fix the alignment. For instance, you can also align text in the middle. And then what I want to illustrate really is that you can change the background color of all of those cells by clicking on that button there, and you simply choose what you want to change it to from any of these colors. You can, of course, type in a color there as well. If you look closely, you will see that there's a pop-up of #FF9999, which is the color number which is used on the web. So you can simply type in a number there as well of that length, and it'll pop up the color. But to make it simple, you can simply choose, now let's choose that green and say OK. And you can see the background color has now been changed to that color that we chose. And you have that. Now, the effect of this becomes very good if you also click on the right hand mouse button, go to table properties, and put in cell spacing of 5 and put in a border. Well, you could actually leave that out. Say OK, and you can see what happens. It seems as if you've got this organized block of color with words in them with a white space in between. Quite effective if you use it that way. Okay, so to further talk about the cell properties, I'm simply going to click on one cell with the right hand mouse button and pick the cell properties and insert a cell before it. Now observe what's going to happen. I have inserted a cell before the cursor. That is the new cell that is inserted, and you can see the cell on the outside is pushed out because I chose to insert a cell only there. I'm going to undo that action. Another thing you can do in a cell properties, you can insert a cell after the cursor, which is exactly what happened there. There's the cursor, there's the cell that's inserted, and it does the same. It pushes the fourth cell out to make it the fifth. Right. Further things, you could delete a cell. For instance, if I delete that cell, you will see that it deleted the cell with a VEL in it, and it's moved the other cells to the left, leaving a blank space on the right hand side. You could also do all other kinds of stuff. You can actually take that cell and split it horizontally, quite interestingly. So it takes just that cell on the same space, and it just makes splits it and makes an empty cell to the right hand of that. All kinds of stuff you need to play around with this a little bit more. That is all I want to say about cell properties. The next thing that I want to go into is row properties. For row properties, as you can see there, you can insert a row before, insert a row after, or delete a row. Very simple. I'm going to insert a row after, and there you see that the row has been inserted. Going to undo that action, and that is all really that is to be said about row. Play around with the other things. You will notice that it also inserts a row before, and it even deletes a row. The next property that we're going to talk about is column properties. Now the columns and rows do almost the same. You can insert a column before, insert a column after the cursor, or delete a column. So in this case I'm going to delete a column, and column 3 has now disappeared. Undo that action. Right, so at this stage we have covered everything up to that point. So all that remains to be said still is how do we give a caption to our table if we should want to do that. Well, you simply would click on your table properties tab, and you would type in a caption there, and you type in the caption. In this case I'll use my table. I press OK, and it has added a caption for my table right on top and in the middle of the table. And that is basically it. Just one last point is that piece of text is you can change outside of the table by simply selecting it, click on bold, and you can even take the size and make that much larger as well. So you could do that type of thing. And that is it. That is all I want to say about tables. There is of course more you could do with tables, but it will make this video far too long. So I would suggest that you play around with this a little bit, and if you've got any questions, contact me. Thanks for watching the video.